Well, how do you want to do that? You have few questions pre-planned, or we want to wait for some question to come in?
I guess we have some questions, so let's start with them, and maybe that will even inspire the audience to maybe pitch in some more questions. So let us start with the first question. Since you are from IIT Bombay, what are your memories of IIT Bombay as a student, and how was your college experience? Maybe from the time you gave the JE in I think 1987 to maybe till you graduated in 1991.
I mean, I begin with by saying that, how grateful I am to have had that experience. And even now, after 30 years, when we do talk about some of those, events which have changed our life totally, and I think that certainly goes to that 1987 walking from the main gate to the main building. It still is in my mind, the palm tree on both sides, right? This beautiful campus and a great set of people that I work with. So my favorite memory of hostel is kind of hard to of the IIT is hard to pick, but you can see that the hostel is probably the best part, right? A lot of fun, lot of good friends that we kind of build, which is for life, right? I mean, all the folks that in the wing to hostel to department to your NSO or whatever, right? I mean, the games that you play and those relationships have lasted lifetime, and it's really awesome. We are not in touch many times for years, but as soon as we meet as though we hadn't even left being in touch. And so that's the connection that it really is what is really built, and which is kind of great. And then, I mean, not to forget, nothing was taboo to discuss, right? And that really did help to create a lot of learning and curiosity. I'm going to leave you with the one that was really quite an exciting for me was going up to the Bihar Lake and jogging up to the hill. I don't know whether you folk can still go there or not, but there's this pipeline road. We could jog around the pipeline road, go up to the hill. I mean, just wonderful campus, right? It was just that those are the favorite memory that I still have.
Great. So now moving ahead, you are the vice president of engineering at GitHub, and I mean it is not a lie if I say that GitHub is very well known. I mean every programmer knows GitHub. Every event which we conduct, we kind of say, "Arey, code GitHub pe upload kar dena." So how has your experience been at GitHub so far? How do you how do you think it is different from Microsoft, which is a big company, to GitHub, which is relatively a smaller company? And overall, how do you feel at GitHub?
It's a very good question, because I get this question often, especially Microsoft is such a great company, and then you go join GitHub. What is it that really prompted me to come to GitHub, and how GitHub is? I think you nail it when you say that anything around a developer, the GitHub is the center of the earth, right? You
Yes.
sort of say, and in fact, it's going to not just developer, it's also to anything that you want to collaborate, right? A lot of people use it just to collaborate on different things, whether it's about the COVID research to any of those, right? I mean, it is certainly in the forefront of the collaboration across the world. And I think that's what makes it different too. It is all about experience. So experience is the topmost thing. So anything we build, it's all about experience. What's the experience of the user? What's the experience of a developer when they want to do something? And so that's a paramount, right? So in many of the companies, right, the engineering rigor exists, or the product strategy exists, and many of those things that you can talk about. But the GitHub is about experience, right? Like how whatever we do, we want to make sure that it has a world-class experience. And so when somebody is trying to work on GitHub, they get the best experience. That's why there are so many fans around of GitHub, right?
Sure, sir.
It is the core of the collaboration across the world. And so that's one part. The second part, when you think about the experience, it's also, it really brings the customer to the center, right? Like we have customers or our users, the center of all our decision making. That's why we become center of everything that they do, right? Everything that they collaborate, right? So it's a mutual, relationship when you put customers at the center. I mean, give you an example about what does it really mean. It's when you do some project and you're taking it to your leadership, you have to justify why you're doing it, right? Now, in many of the places that I've been, you always justify this from a business perspective. This is what it means to the business, right? And I got reminded multiple number of times is that, when you talk about project at GitHub, you always talk about what is in it for our developer, our user, right? And so that centrality of the developer on everything that we do is really what makes a difference in terms of what we do. And finally, we focus on fewer things. While it's a big company, I mean, we don't want to spread thin and then create functionality, but not create experiences, right? And so those are the few things that I found very different, having been through so many different companies about GitHub.
Thank you, sir. By the way, audience, please pitch in questions. The stage is as such free for you. You can even unmute yourself and even start your video. I would, in fact, encourage those who can to start your video. And this is an interactive session. This is not supposed to be a one-way dialogue. So yeah. So maybe until we have some more questions from the audience, let's move ahead. In retrospect, you have held many leading positions at various corporations. What do you think was a special moment, maybe in your career or in your education, which you believe has let you achieve these positions? Do you think you did something special because of which you could have these positions at great companies? Or what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. I'm going to say one thing right out, that when you look at your career progression, it's not a straight line. And especially as a, students, we've always had a straight line, right? And there was never a doubt about a fact is that, look, I'm going to go from 9 to 10. It was just the fact is that, how good that the results are going to be, right? It's never going to be like, did I make it or any of those, right? So there is a predictability in a straight line in our career, right? In our,
Education.
progression in the education, right? And in the professional world, I think that's one thing first thing you need to do is to let go of that, right? Just accept that you're now in this large world of professional career where there is no straight line, right? And so when you look at somebody and say, hey, you had a successful career, how did it go? Let me tell you that there isn't any straight line that I can tell you that this is how I climbed up, right? It's a Brownian motion, which has some intentionality about what you want to do, right? And by that means, it means is that there is no answer, right? That fits everybody to sort of say that that's a success, right? So now I like the question that we asked is, what was my success, right? What did I feel that made it successful? I think there are two things that I will call out. One is that every change that I made, I was intentional about it as to why I'm making the change. I didn't make a change because things weren't working out, right? Those to me felt like opportunity to do and learn something, right? It was mostly the thing that, I wanted to do something and I wasn't going to get that experience. So I kind of went to something else and get that experience, right? So that's the intentionality about, what was my dream, what was my passion that I wanted to do, right? And the second one was not afraid of, trying something different, right? And it's like sort of connected, right? Like how well are you connected with your intention gives you the energy or the clarity about what risk that you want to take, right? So the risk to me was always being stagnant rather than going down or going up. I actually describe it that you try something which goes up or goes down, you're actually good. It is the one that you need to worry about is that it just keeps on going, right? And it doesn't get you anywhere, right? Going down is also fun, right? It actually lets you learn from it, right? And so I think that brings in the curiosity, right? Just being curious. And there is another word that today we call is the growth mindset, which is, always constantly looking out and saying that, what I can learn from it, whether it's for every one of the things that you can take on. And so those are my success mantra. But I'm going to remind you again, it's a Brownian motion. What success means itself is very different from each of you. And so don't, you can't copy. I'm not going to say that don't copy, right? You can't copy anybody, right? It has to be your own, right? And that's really what is a very important thing. Yeah, as we said, right, like we're going to wait for a question from people. Generally, I've seen is it takes a bit of a time for the first question to show up. So we are going to have these, moment of silence. But I'm just noticing that messages on the chat box is directly to me. I would love if you share to everybody. So if you sent a question to me, I haven't watched it. I'll ask you to sort of just put the question for everybody. All right, so we'll wait for a question.
Okay, so I can ask.
Okay, yeah.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, Piyush, go.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, Sanjay. So I wanted to ask you this. Like, does the sense of urgency or the very fast-paced environment that is there in the industry, does it overwhelm you? Or like, how do you like try to switch off sometimes or get over the things if like things have been quite fast?
Yes, I think there are two different things, right? And I'll kind of break them down, right? One is the pace of change, right? The pace of change is really fast. And what is the pace of change when it is fast? How do you deal with it, right? Then the second one that you sort of really talked about is that, look, you're really running fast and, how do you take break and what do you do, right? So I'm going to first answer the second part of it. I needed to set the first context because a lot of the times we confuse is the pace of change with the pace of our running, right? Now think about it. If the change is, really fast, can you really deal with it with, a lot of fast pace of doing things as well? No, right? And that's precisely the why you need to slow down and make sure that in this change, you're seeing what is changing and you're doing the right things and not just doing the activity, right? And so this is also very, very interesting that you will go back and see in academia today, that pace of change isn't there, right? Like if you know precisely 6 months back, what are the courses you're taking? Those courses are not going to change, right? And so it's different than in the industry. Right? Even this presentation when I made, right? We logged in early and I told them that, look, I don't want to answer the questions that you have prepared. I want to answer what people need, right? Because the intentionality of this entire thing that I'm spending this time is to answer the questions that you have, right? And so this is the change, right? That I'm embracing to sort of say that, I don't know what kind of questions can come in, right? So going back to the pace of change, how do you deal with is really about, embracing that ambiguity that it brings and then finding opportunity in this change, right? Because this pace of change, you can think about building the next GitHub. You can think about building a next Microsoft, next Google, and don't laugh, Piyush, it's reality, okay? You have to believe that, when you look at it, that Satya Nadella was one of you, right? And one of us. And so So I think the pace of change really allows you to, prosper if you really know what you want to do. So it's an opportunity. But thanks for asking that question. And I think clearly just distinguish between pace of change and how fast you are chasing your goal, right? I think those two shouldn't be confused.
Okay, we also have one more question from Pranav Singla. He says, open source development faces several challenges in funding and sustainability. GitHub plays a central role in the open source development ecosystem, it being the primary place where the open source is developed. What can we as students, I guess, we means students can do to overcome these challenges, and GitHub itself can do to overcome these challenges so that open source projects maybe get funding or get contributions in terms of code. So what do you think? What can be done?
Yeah. So, Naresh, I think it's a very, very, very valid question, right? First of all, the open source, the open source world started with the intent of changing the way the softwares are built and changing the way, how the humans or developers can make progress. And it has achieved a lot, right? I mean, you think about Black Hole, the software which really took the image, was built out of so many open source software components, right? So you should probably see the GitHub universe. I'm forgetting the year, it was 2019 or something. And, we basically collated every package that was used and collated the number of people who had built it, right? And you figure out there's so many people indirectly contributed to it. They didn't even know when they were doing something that this is how a bigger impact is going to be made. But the question really is that at the end of the day, you also want to see if you can make money out of it. And I'm not sure if you're keeping abreast. There's something called the sponsor that the GitHub has started, right? And so many of the large companies are now allowed to sort of sponsor these open source software contributor. We'll continue to take that forward to sort of make sure that not only the open source software developer enjoys what they do, what they're building, but at the same time, they can also make money out of it. If you have ideas about what we can do not hesitate to send them over to me. We'll certainly look at those as well. But yes, it's one of the big thing on our mind. And open source community is a big thing for us to make sure that they continue to thrive, because that's how the biggest changes that we are seeing around the world, right?
Yes.
Hey, Manish, can you please use the chat as well to write the questions, or if you think you got your answer? I really want to see chat box. We are putting in more questions. All right, the question from Rohan. As future aspiring software developer, in your opinion, what are the skills we must have to contribute to this sector? What are some fields that excite you and are upcoming? Multiple questions. I'm just going to start with the first one, future aspiring software developer. So I think the one big thing that I'm going to say, which really in any career that you think about, is being curious. And it's very important that you question everything, you understand the context, you learn why you're doing something. Without that, you will be doing an activity and not really achieving the end goal for which the activity is being done, right? So that's number one, right? As a software developer, it doesn't really matter whether you're a software developer or any of the career that you're doing, right? It's not about activity. It's about what is it that you're trying to solve. Understand that context. Understand why you're using certain technology or certain solution, right? Be curious. That's the most important thing. The second thing is you got to be passionate about what you're doing, right? So it goes back to the same thing, right? You're not going to see this as just an activity, something that you're passionate about doing, right? When you're passionate about doing, you're going to do it the best possible way that it can be done. Right? If that passion doesn't exist, it'll become a chore, right? You're not going to enjoy what you're doing. And that's very important, not just from that particular task, but also the longevity of your career. I finished 25 plus years in the industry, and I'm sure I want to keep going. I mean, there is more years to come, right? And so you want to think about the longevity, right? Think about our PM, what's his age? I mean, you think about it, at that age, he's leading the country, right? So that's the longevity you want, right? And that really comes from that passion that you bring. The third one I'm going to say is learn technology tools that are required, right? I mean, that's really, as a software developer, you only know what technologies will keep changing. Java was probably the Swing was a top thing. Now it's a React, right? There were different ways the software was done. So change is going to be constant, and it will only be faster, as Piyush pointed out, right? So keep learning those tools and technology. You can't just say that, oh, Sanjay, tell me what it is going to be. Oh, what is it? React and Apache and LAMP, and I don't know. I mean, tomorrow by the time you come out, it could be something totally different, right? And so keep learning, be curious about that as well, right? And finally, right, to be successful, be a leader, right? And I'm going to define be a leader is the one that doesn't think of themselves as a victim for anything that happens, right? You take the ownership of whatever happens and try and impact it, change it to where you want it to be, right? And trust me, leadership is not about being in a certain position. Leadership is about state of mind. Leadership is about your intention, right? And so be that leader for yourself, be the leader for people around you, right? Those are the few things that I would tell you, the skills that matter in this sector, and I'm sure these are probably true for any other sector as well. What are the fields that excite you and are upcoming? This is the question which would be really hard for me to sort of say that, which are the sectors that are coming up. But for me, I think the place that I look at and see where we can make a huge impact today, the development or developers today mostly are doing things on what I call the on-prem infrastructure, which is, your own desktop and things like that. And I believe that, we can take that to the cloud, and it'll probably make it much more easier. You saw the Copilot and many of those things, right? So I think there is a lot of things that we can do for developers to make them more productive. Today, a lot of time gets spent in just pulling together the bare bone things and then get to the business logic then, right? I think there's a lot can be done. Similar thing can be said about medical as well. A lot more software can come in, and pandemic has really helped us acknowledge and adopt it, right? I mean, many doctors weren't very comfortable of saying, oh, doing the consultation on the phone, video, or any of those. That thing is changing, right? And so I think there's a lot to happen there, and that's where a lot of ML and a lot of these things can actually play a much bigger role. So is automation all over, right? Whether you talk about industry, whether you talk about home or any of those places. So software is a pretty exciting field right now, right? And I think there's a lot more to happen. What we have achieved is only creating appetite for more.
Yes, sir. So I guess a few people had sent the questions directly to Sanjay sir. If you could send it, so the students who sent it to Sanjay sir, if you could send it on the chat for everyone, that would be really nice, so that everyone kind of has a brief about the question. Let's wait for maybe a few seconds to see if some question comes. Okay, so this is one question which I have got. The question says, how difficult it is for a developer with a non-CS major as compared to a CS major in terms of securing a software development role in leading firms? And he adds on to the question, it would be great if you could answer it in the case of a fresher and after some professional experience. So I guess the question wants to say, so if there is some fresher who is in a non-CS branch and he wants to pursue SDE role in leading firms, which I guess without any questions are FANG, Microsoft, and the allied firms.
Yeah.
And how it be for what a fresher should do, I guess, and what some professional should do after some experience.
Yeah.
So for you,
it's a very very interesting question, right? In general, when we are looking for people, we are looking for people who are qualified for the job, right? And the qualification is really about what is required in the job. It's not necessarily about the degree. It's not about which discipline that you come from, right? I mean, the world is moving towards that, right? More and more. But I'm going to say something to you is that when I look at the people in the leading industry, most of them do have a CS background. So, you know, it's, which also I'm saying is that there are people who are there who don't have a CS background as well, right? So, you know, I'm probably saying to both things to you, right? But I'm going to say why and what is required for you to be successful so that, you know, you do the right thing. You know, in any field, if you don't know the taxonomy of that field, it's going to be hard for you to engage in the conversation, to sell your ideas or sell your design or talk about your design or talk about your solution, right? And similarly, if you don't understand the customer context, then also you're going to be a hard time, right? You can't really understand why you're doing it, right? So the taxonomy of what you're trying, the technology that you're building is one part to be successful as a developer, but you know there's another aspect which is higher to understand the customer context, right? And that is why it's not necessary that the CS's degree is important, right? You could be without a CS degree, but if you want to be really effective, you want to be, you know, building the right solutions, not wanting to relearn whatever has happened. I mean, there are concepts in the CS. There are, you know, already solved problems that you're going to learn through the CS. If you don't have that, then you're going to put in extra effort to do that, right? And good news today is the way we are learning has changed. There is so much of information. There is so much of courses that are available online from one of the best institutes, best teachers, that it's easy for anybody to sort of build the context. So short of my long answer is that yes, you can succeed, but be intentional about building the taxonomy, building the concepts of computer science, and learning what already exists rather than trying to sort of relearn or, you know, rediscover whatever has already been done. Hope that answers, or did I answer just the first part of the question?
I guess it has answered all the parts. Yes, sir.
All right, Ellen asked the question is, there are so many things happening. All of this is so overwhelming. I don't know which path to take and if I will be successful in it. How do you have confidence in the path you choose, and how are you consistent with that you choose? And it's, first of all, I'm going to start with telling you that it's normal to feel overwhelmed. Choices create more stress, and it's a interesting thing. You're fortunate to have choices, right? But that fortunate thing is also brings its own stress, right? So yeah, I mean, hindsight is easy, right? I sit here and tell you that, you know, look how I feel about and how confident I am about what I've achieved. But I told you just before this that, you know, look, the career progression is a Brownian motion, right? You really don't know till you have gone through to sort of say what is going to happen. So what has made me successful, or what made me take that path and not worry about it? I'm going to start with telling you my own journey to getting to IIT. when I was preparing for it, there were so many naysayers who told me that, oh, this ye banda to pagal ho gaya, right? I mean, this guy has gone mad now, he's going to try this, will not get this and will not get that, right? And so fear is a very normal human emotion, right? And which is something that, you will get from your well-wishers. And that's really right? Because they are worried about you. So that's what is the one thing that I've seen might, make you shaky. What helped me was that it was clear to me that what I wanted to do, which is the engineering. And it was clear that if I wanted to do engineering, IIT was one of the best places to go to engineering. And I wasn't afraid to sort of try it. The worst case scenario that I noticed was that, look, I probably have to wait for another year to get into some other engineering college, right? So you do that cost analysis and say, what, is this a life-threatening risk that am I taking? If it's not a life-threatening risk, then there isn't anything to worry about, right? Then just create the energy in you to sort of say, this is what you wanted to do and go after it, right? And so I think that is the mantra that I can give you is connect with your goal, what you want to do, right? The reason you don't connect is because you fear of failure, right? But just talk to yourself and say, what's the cost of failing? Just the way that I gave you this example of the failing was that, I would have probably had to spend another year and it wouldn't have made any difference in life whatsoever, right? And so I think that's the way to calm yourself down and do not argue with the naysayers, right? The way to deal with the naysayer is to sort of look at the love for you and just listen to them. What do they think that there are downsides of taking the path, right? And that's about it. So take them as a way to learn about what you need to be careful, but that's about it. Hope, Alan, I answered your question. And don't worry if you don't know what you want to do. As you slow down, as you relax, it'll come to you. It comes to everybody. Bhavya, the question, according to your point of view, what should we do alongside the college academics in the direction to become an emerging entrepreneur? I didn't experience it. So, Bhavya, I'm just going to give you the answer in the hindsight. So, I'm just going to tell you one thing with the college education academics is that you got to be fully engaged in what you're doing. And I also want you to enjoy the time that you have. This is a unique time in your life. Don't try and overburden it with too many things. If you want to be an entrepreneur, one of the things that I have learned is that can you really connect, right? And the connection starts with you yourself, right? Look, do you want to overburden yourself? Can you really take on to more things, right? I think you have to sort of figure out what your passion is. But what I mean by connect is that when you look at so many things going around, can you connect to some problem? Can you see a possible solution that you can build, right? And that's where the entrepreneur starts. The second part of the entrepreneur is are you willing to take the risk of talking about the solution, right? That's where the entrepreneur is born, right? Can you really say that that problem is actually real and you do have a solution? If you can tell it to one person, then you can tell it to 100 people, then you can tell it to 1,000 people, then it you can make the progress on it. And so that's really what I'm going to say. But I'm going to remind you again, please do not overburden yourself about saying that look, oh, I need to be doing this or that during the college. Be engaged, know what you're there in. There is a certain things that you are there for, and do not forget to enjoy your college time as well. Bhavya, I hope I answered your question. As I said, this is in hindsight. I wasn't the entrepreneur at the time when I was in the college. Abhijit, question, what kind of skills are required to reach higher levels in software? how much do you do pure technical skill matters? Most companies today that you see needs a technical leader. So understanding of technology is absolutely necessary. So you cannot get to top level position unless and until you have a great appreciation of the technology. And we talked about it. Technology keeps changing, right? So if you aren't abreast of the technology, the company is dead. And you think about it, what is the biggest challenge for Microsoft? They missed the mobile, right? And look, we missed search. Look, where did we get to, right? I mean, people were wondering whether we will survive or not survive, right? But we caught on to the cloud wave, right? And so I think without technology, without understanding of technology, there is no way that you're going to be successful. So what's a technical skill? Technical skill is not about just the coding. It's really about understanding the depth of the technology, right? And that's where the computer science concepts really come in. So what is ML eventually at the end of the day, right? Understanding that and how that can be applied to the customer problem is the second part of it, right? And so I think knowing those two things is very, very critical. So what are the skills required to be successful or reaching to the higher level? I'm going to say technical skill, translating the customer and business requirement into a solution, right? That's the second one, right? So I told you about earlier that, look, it's not about an activity. It's not about a software piece that you're developing. It's about you're solving some problem. How do you solve that problem? How do you break it down, that big thing that you got, right, to a smaller one, and then, bring that together. And so that's the big thing as you go up. And the third one that is very important is the ability to work with large team, ability to build these teams, ability to build the culture of your team and company, which is, wanting to achieve, higher results, solving, real customer problems, right? And so those are the three things that I would tell you about how do you reach to the higher level.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Abhijit, for asking. Bhavya, that's a great thing that right? That what you want to do. The only thing that I'm going to tell you is please do not put the deadline on any goal, right? Put what you want to achieve in that goal, right? The deadlines are not the goal, right? It's not a goal that you got to be doing something about 35 years. I'm going to remind you again, like look at our prime minister at 65, 70, around, I don't know exact age. He's leading the country. Why do you want to retire at 35? Retirement is what you want to do, which doesn't feel like any stress, right? So rest of it is awesome. You know what you want to do? Go for it. Get first person to convince, and then you go to the next. By the way, sorry, I didn't realize it was a direct message. Piyush, how do you look at higher education after bachelor's? Piyush, this has been a hardest question for me. I get this question every year, and the thing that I do is that I send the people to the other colleagues who have done the PhD or done the masters, right? Frankly, I haven't felt the need of going to the higher education, or I felt the need that, look, I feel like that is coming in my way. So, I can certainly tell you that that has not been a problem for me. But what I've seen is that people who have done higher education, let's say the masters, or people who have done the PhD, they learn a lot of other skills apart from the technology, which is really very, very important. Like technology skills, you can still learn outside, but you can't learn these things like really writing the thesis, making your point of view clearer and communicating that outside to the people, right? Engaging with much larger community, right? And holding on your own, right? In terms of convincing people, right? Those are some of the things that are very, very invaluable, right? I mean, one of my batchmate who did the PhD, for whom I worked on, he talked about that, this is one of the things that was very, very important out of the PhD that he's learned, to set the future direction, right? I mean, how do you do that? What do you write, and how do you bring the things together, right? Those are the sort of some of the very invaluable things that you learn out of these education. Again, that doesn't take away from the other context of technology, which I said is that there are some concepts, there are some prior art that you can really learn by doing these that you don't have to rediscover. And that again depends on, once you discover what you want to do, then you want to do it, right? It's like, if you wanted to do something more on the ML side, then it might be good to sort of go do that and learn, right? And there is no point rediscovering some of those things later by yourself.
Thank you so much.
Pranav, how do you compare specialized knowledge and diverse knowledge at our learning stages? How do you balance between them? Look, it's really is your journey. Specialization, we did, right? We went to some specialization, and a lot of the people who go to that specialization, they end up going to doing something else, right? Many of folks go to MBA, they are leading fintech industries, banks, and things like that. And so I would let your own passion, your own goal, what you want to do, drive towards whether you want to be diverse knowledge or you want to be into the specialized. But how do you choose, or how do you balance? If you're clear what you want to do, go specialized way, right? Go learn how to make that happen. But if you don't know, don't go to the specialized one. Stay into the diverse field so that you have a open field to find what you want to do, right? So it's really goes back to what is it that where you are and what you want to do.
Yes.
All right, we're in the last 10 minutes. I'm really enjoying. Thanks for asking the question. You're here on the call. You could be watching the, final. Make the best out of it.
Okay, so until maybe we get a question, let's have a small question.
Nah, I
What
don't
do you
have.
think? Acha, acha.
Okay, I think it's important that we connect with the audience and make sure that we're answering questions that they need. If they don't, I think we should give them time back.
Sure, sir.
All right, folks. Abhijit, we partnered with Microsoft to go to the campuses. So we are coming to campuses. And so, you will see in the pre-placement talk on the Microsoft is for both the companies. The question directly to me from Shruti is, can you lay out a roadmap to get a ST job at a FANG company for someone who is not from CSE branch? Shruti, I think it'd probably be hard for me to be very specific, but I think the entry-level job, what's important is that you learn the CS concept, problem solving. Those are two, really the important thing. I would say that, look, the critical one of those are data structure. Critical one of those are algorithms. operating system. I would also talk about some of the things on the databases, learning about distributed systems today, which has become so prevalent and must have. Learn about programming languages, not just about a programming language, learn about the programming concepts. These are the few things that I would point out. I don't know if I missed anything important here, but I think those are the few ones that I would certainly point out. I would also say that learn about the computer architecture as well, so that when you build some high scale solutions, why something will scale and something will not scale. So there's a few things that I would say that you do. There are a lot of competitive programming sites that you can practice from an interview perspective, but I would suggest that if you want to learn the skills of building software, join some open source software on the GitHub. Really help you get the real life experience of building the real life software. Hope I answered the question. All right, thank you, folks. Thanks for joining. It was great fun talking to all of you. Anmol, Ved, thanks for organizing it. I really like what you folks are doing here in terms of interacting with industry leaders. It really does help when you start your career. So kudos to you folks to start doing this. And thanks again.
Thank you very much, sir. We hope that this pandemic subsides as soon as possible, and then we are able to have you on the campus. Till then, I guess, thank you very much for your guidance. Now we know a lot about software engineering industry and your views on it. And I guess let's meet whenever we are able to meet offline. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you, sir.